presenting my last lecture today. So before I start, I want to give a little overview about myself. I am from Spain, so my mom's from the States and my dad is from Spain, but I was born and raised for most of my life in Spain. This affects the way this means that I'm culturally different, and I only realized this once I came to the United States, which has just been for college. I am also a revolutionary, so I don't agree with the current political system, and I work actively to change it because I think that it's really problematic for a lot of people. And I also disagree with the gender binary, so the fact that we divide society between just men and women, and there's kind of like this linear visualization of those two things. However, I'm not going to talk about Spain and how much I get homesick. I'm not going to talk about politics or about revolution. I'm not going to talk about sexual orientation or the way I personally identify. However, these things do affect the way I see the world and the way I live, so hopefully that means that the things that I talk about are kind of influenced by these aspects of my identity. I think that a lot of people talked about already in class the issue of when you move around, either between different countries or if you come from immigrant families, even if you move from state to state or you change schools, there's a lot of feeling of not fitting in or feeling that you have more difficulty fitting in. I wrote the circ angle there because I read this story when I was little about this little girl who didn't feel like she fit in, and she was like, I'm a circ angle because I'm too triangular to be a circle, but I'm too circular to be a triangle, so I don't fit in anywhere. The way I prefer to see it is that you're able to fit in a lot of different places instead of not fitting in anywhere. And in order to do this, I think it's really important to establish positive connections with people. For this, it's really important to be yourself. I know that's really cliche, but it's really, really important to just be honest with people, to be yourself, and to really be able to connect with people on more deep levels. So the more you are yourself, the more you will be, even in those weird, quirky, nerdy ways, whatever, the sooner you'll be able to connect with people who are more like you and with people who are going to be more important in your life and friends on a different kind, on a deeper level. I think that something else that's really important to take into consideration, I was doing an interview with a professor here once at Rutgers. She was an anthropology professor. And she is white, and Spanish is not her native language, but she did a lot of interviews on immigration with Dominican immigrants in the United States. One of the questions I asked her was, how are you able to ask people questions about immigration when they might not feel safe doing so, particularly with someone who isn't part of their own community? And she said, well, listen, like a lot of people like to talk about themselves. As soon as you start asking people questions about themselves, most people are very willing to open up. I think this was really relevant. This is also something you see, for example, on Humans of New York. People get really personal really quickly. This isn't going to be everyone, but people do actually open up. So I think that actually caring and showing interest in people's lives is a really great way to get people to open up. And that's just really useful in general for when you go to different places because you're able to connect with more people. It's also true that when you share more about yourself, other people are also willing to open up. So the more personal you get, the earlier on you get personal or just able to be comfortable with yourself and share about yourself, the quicker other people will be to share about themselves as well. And that's a really great way, I think, to establish connections, make friendships, etc. So this issue of caring kind of leads me to the idea of the goodness of people. Other people raised this as well in their last lectures. I think that people are good on a very basic level, and I think that society, it kind of teaches us that we have to be, not that we have to be selfish, but that we need success above others. There's a lot of competitiveness in society, and a lot of that I think is really unnecessary competitiveness, and that when we're trying to get ahead of other people without helping people, it can have really negative consequences in society. So I think it's really important to show caring, to establish these connections with other people, and also to find ways where we can make change, to question everything about the way we live that might not be a good thing for ourselves or for other people, and be able to then make the changes we want to change. There's a couple of quotes I really like. One is we did not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrowed it from our children. And I think this speaks a lot to the way that we live, particularly in the United States and in quote-unquote developed countries. We have this idea of, we assume that we're going to be able to live with basic levels of consumption, and we don't think about the repercussions that that has on the rest of the world and what that's going to mean also for the future. And this is having really negative consequences for the world and for different societies we live in. I think it's also important to keep in mind that the personal is political, and your science will not protect you. Audre Lorde said both these things. So the way we choose every day, the way we dress, the way we act, the way we relate to other people, every single day, this is another kind of cliche thing, but every single day is the first day of the rest of our lives. And every single day we choose the way we're going to live our lives. I feel that particularly in college, it's really easy to have this idea that our life will start some point in the future. Like when we finish college, we'll get a job and somehow then life will get easier, life will be made for us. But I don't think that life is actually, I obviously haven't graduated college, but I don't think life is ever going to get any easier. There's always going to be bills to pay, chores to run, jobs to apply for, events to go to, things to plan, people getting sick, etc. And there's always going to be new things that you're going to have to deal with. So we may as well start doing the things that we feel passionate about and that we really want to do with our lives sooner rather than later. So this brings me to be the change you want to see in the world. So care about people, show interest in people, establish the valuable connections, do what you feel passionate about, do the things that are going to be good for yourself and for the world, and create positive change where you can. Thank you.